By now, you've probably come across the headline-making preliminary report on the crash of Air India Flight 171. According to the findings, just 3 seconds after the Boeing 787-8 lifted off, both engine fuel control switches were somehow moved to the cutoff position, cutting fuel supply to the engines. This led to a total loss of power. Since the report came out, some countries have told their airlines to inspect the 787's fuel switches. It also turns out that US investigators were reportedly frustrated with how Indian authorities handled the early stages of the probe. In today's video, we dive into all of this. What was first assumed to be a rare dual-engine failure was, in fact, the result of fuel being cut off. Incredibly, the cockpit voice recorder captured one pilot asking why the other had moved the switch to cut off, only to hear the reply, "I didn't touch it." 10 seconds after liftoff, both switches were flipped back to the run position. When later recovered from the wreckage, they were confirmed to be in the run position. No mechanical failures have been found so far, but these early findings raise serious questions about how the switches ended up off in the first place. Air India is said to be fully cooperating with authorities as the investigation continues into what has tragically become the first fatal crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Both pilots, based in Mumbai, had been properly rested before the flight from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick and were declared fit for duty. A small number of fuel samples were collected after the crash, with contamination considered early on as a factor. But the report found no sign of fuel contamination. According to the Air Current, the AAIB's initial 15-page report, compiled by India's Ministry of Civil Aviation, noted the ram air turbine automatically deployed when the engines shut down, activating engine restart logic just 2 seconds after the switches were flipped back on. One engine, number 2, did begin to reignite, but couldn't sustain enough core speed to take in fuel again. Reactions to the report have been swift. Some airlines began inspecting their fuel switches right away. Boeing and the US FAA have both reassured operators that the switches are safe. On July 14th, India's DGCA ordered airlines, including Air India, Indigo, and SpiceJet, to inspect switches on their Boeing fleets, including 787s and some 737s. These inspections must be completed by July 21st, and airlines must submit their inspection plans and results to the DGCA. This extra scrutiny follows a Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin, SAIB, from 2018, where the FAA flagged reports from 737 operators that some fuel switches had been installed without their locking feature engaged. While no crashes have resulted from this, the issue included multiple Boeing types, 777, 747, and 787 jets. South Korea, home to several Boeing operators, has also ordered switch inspections. A spokesperson told Reuters the checks align with the FAA's 2018 notice. Meanwhile, Etihad has warned its pilots to be extra cautious when operating fuel switches. The 2018 SAIB didn't lead to a formal airworthiness directive, because the issue wasn't considered severe. Air India reportedly hadn't performed inspections tied to the SAIB, since it was only advisory, not mandatory. However, the aircraft involved in the crash had its throttle control module replaced in both 2019 and 2023. These replacements weren't related to the fuel control switches, and no defects had been logged since their installation. For those unfamiliar with the system, why do aircraft even have fuel cutoff switches? As explained by The Independent, these switches are used to start or shut down engines, especially on the ground. They can also be used to shut down or restart an engine mid-flight, and are vital in cases of engine fires or failures. One of the most striking developments surrounding the crash is the tension it created between Indian and US investigators. Sources from the Wall Street Journal reported that the US NTSB nearly pulled out of the investigation altogether over what it saw as delays and lack of transparency. Accessing the black box data took longer than expected, and while the preliminary report was released within ICAO's recommended 30-day window, Indian officials were criticized for holding back key facts. Initially, investigators had planned to send the black boxes away from Delhi, even though a new lab had just opened in the capital. They later changed course and processed them locally. As reported by The Hindu, the NTSB played a key role in extracting around 49 hours of data from 6 flights recorded on the devices. At one point, US investigators threatened to withdraw completely, but ultimately stayed until the analysis was done before returning to the US. So, to wrap up, this initial report provides some answers, but raises even more questions. Most notably, why were those switches moved to cutoff? Was it human error, a technical glitch, or something else entirely? As is often the case, we'll have to wait months for the final report, which usually takes about a year. Some have speculated about possible pilot suicide, though that theory remains unproven and highly sensitive. India's pilot union, ALPA-Y, has slammed that speculation, stating it categorically rejects this presumption and calling for a fair and fact-centered inquiry. What are your thoughts on the preliminary report and how the situation has been handled?